Hey everybody. So, today I want to take a quick minute, or 10 minutes really, to talk about a particular topic, and that is taking medieval and colonial American and pretty much putting that into prep or bugging out. Um, this doesn't seem like it's a big thing that people talk about. And now I got the inspiration from three different channels. So that's where I kind of want to bring it from. Um, and I'm gonna have the names of those channels down in the description. Please feel free to check them out because you can get some massive ideas from some of these guys. Um, and that is first off looking at colonial periods and even looking at medieval periods on preservation of food. Uh, you find that there was a lot of food that they made or preserved back in these periods that actually lasted a fairly decent amount of time. Um, there's some that come to mind that might only last maybe a week or two, but that week could be the difference between survival and your alternative. I'll put it that way. Um, but also it also kind of ties into the defensive aspect as well. Looking at how can this help me survive in an environment that might be hostile or might be dangerous. So that also helps too. Um, but first looking at the food. There's many different forms of preservation that, colonial period and medieval periods did to help um, preserve food for a period of time extending past their normal expiration date. Put it that way. Um, from, canning to there's different forms of canning that they use. You had canning with mason jars all the way to canning with butter. And now some of you might be thinking, canning with butter? Yeah. One type of canning they did was, and the one channel, Townsend, actually goes into a little bit of detail on this, is they would catch fish, break it down after cleaning it. They'd break it down and then they'd can it, put it in a dish, and pour melted butter on top of it until it completely hardened the whole way through. And all that fish would be preserved for longer than its normal intended lifespan. Um so that's one possibility. There's also pickling, which we still use some of this stuff today. And it's like, yes, you can use this stuff for a bug out scenario or a prep scenario. Um, Another thing is like I said with defense. When somebody puts makes a question, begs the question of, okay, you're in this type of scenario. How would you protect yourself? I usually tend to draw back to, colonial period America and medieval times because both of them have dealt with scenarios similar to what you may face in a bug out scenario. And it's like, it also puts me back to the mentality of your home is your castle. So keeping that in mind, it's like, okay, so if your home is your castle, how are you going to fortify it? How are you going to defend yourself? You can make wooden walls to barricade yourself away from those other people. Yes, they can burn it down, But how are they going to burn it down if you're in a situation where, there's a lot of moisture? Another thing is firearms. How is a firearm going to defend a wooden fortification? Well, depending on how you do it, if you do it right, it can. Um, but I also go to stone fortifications, stone and mortar, brick and mortar. There's all different forms of uh, fortifications that medieval period and colonial period used that could quite possibly defend you against all this stuff. Firearms, um, explosives. The only thing it's really not going to defend you against is poison gases. So therein lies something else. Okay, how are you going to defend yourself against poison gas? Well, if you're smart enough and you're already prepared yourself for such a scenario, a gas mask will help. And now I keep hearing from people, oh, well, gas mask isn't going to help you if you have a beard. That's a 50-50. Like, I keep hearing that from people, but I still see a lot of preppers with beards who use gas masks. And I have one particular friend who actually got to test out a gas mask like my own that I own. I own multiple. But he tested one of them out, and he tested it against tear gas. And what he found is that even if you have that gas mask on, you're still going to be breathing in a little bit of that, no matter if it's completely sealed or if you have a beard. You still kind of have to face that fact, because not only is it clinging to your mask, but it will also cling to your clothing, your skin. So when you pull off that mask, you're still going to breathe in some of it. So a gas mask isn't a 100% defense against that sort of stuff. But what is? Well, knowing the proper procedure is. So that you can't take into medieval times. What you have to do is you got to go and look at what they did. For instance, what did colonial America do to defend themselves against outside forces? They built fortifications. How did they build these fortifications? By using what materials were in the area at that that point in time. But again, honestly, I just tell people, pick up a book, a history book. Pick that up, put that in your bag. I mean, it's at least something for you to read. Because even in a bug out scenario, you need something to keep your mind off of things. So you want to read a book. Get a history book. It won't hurt, because you might find that you'll be taking cues from that history book. For instance, one book that I actually have in my bug out bag, and I enjoy reading it. I've actually read it several times, and that is The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Perfect book to read. But yeah, just pick up a book, whether it be a history book or a book on a period in time. Read it. You might find you can take some cues from it. Other than that, have a nice day. I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving, because that's coming up next week. And see you guys next time.